everybody. Welcome to the Female Film Critics panel. And this is a show where we like to talk with female film critics and content creators and hear about their experience. It's so much fun. And today I'm so excited. We have critic Tania Lamb here with us. And thank you so much, Tania, for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so this is your first time on the podcast, so I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do for your website and your reviews and your other work that you do.
So my website is Lolalambchops.com. And on that website, it's not strictly entertainment, but I also do some travel content as well, mostly theme park content because I live so close to Disney World. So a lot of it is Disney, Universal, that kind of thing. But I've been, writing reviews for movies probably for about 11 years or so. And I'm a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic, and that happened in 2019. So
yeah,
it's been a fun ride.
Did they add you or did you apply?
I applied.
Oh, you applied.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got added in 2019. I didn't apply.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. Look at you. Okay, Rachel.
Yeah, it was wild. I guess they were trying to get more female voices on the critics on the site.
Yeah.
And I had been doing my own reviews, plus I had been writing for, and I still do, write for Rotoscopers, which is an animation website. And they had found some of my reviews on there and they liked them. And when I first got the email, I thought that it was a joke. I thought somebody was pranking me because I hadn't applied, like why would I get a thing for Rotten Tomatoes? And then they sent me a second email and they were like, we just wanted to see if you were interested. And then I looked it up. I'm like, oh, this is real. This is a real person.
Oh, that's awesome, though. I mean,
yeah.
I am glad that they added more female voices. So
yeah. Well, I mean, there are times though that I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome because it's just like but I did all the work. It's just I hadn't developed enough of a following yet that I could have applied. But that's flattering that they liked my writing. And I think success in anything, especially in the arts, is a combination of hard work and luck, but the hard work gets you there in the spot to get the luck.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So that I think everybody has that story. But still, there are because people ask me, how do you get on Rotten Tomatoes? I'm like, wrong person.
You're like, I don't know. They came to me. So they came to me. Good luck.
But that must have been very exciting though when you got added.
No, it was very exciting. So, and it's been fun. And it's not my full-time job. Well, I don't have a full-time job necessarily.
Yeah, freelancer.
So yeah.
Me.
Yep.
Yeah. I get that. And we say that if something isn't my job, I find a way to make it my job. That's the freelancer's curse.
Right.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
But yeah, I noticed that you are a big Disney World fan. I mean, I guess you live by there, but theme parks in general, you're a big theme park person?
Yeah, I mean, I started off as a Disney fan. That's kind of actually how I don't.
Yeah, you've done a lot of like D23 and stuff.
Yeah, and so back in the day, so I started off as a blogger. I mean, I still have my blog, but back in the day, Disney used to do this thing where they would invite 25 bloggers. It was a big group of bloggers for pretty much every Disney movie, and you would help promote it. So whether it was different circumstances. So sometimes it was for TV shows, sometimes it was for movies, but sometimes you would do a set visit, sometimes you would do a red carpet, sometimes it's interviews for the movie, but you're doing it all in a group of 25.
Well, if you got invited to one of those and then you ended up not liking the movie, what happened? Did that ever happen?
I mean, yeah, so especially because when they were inviting bloggers, like they weren't necessarily people who were writing about movies. Like some of them were coupon bloggers, some of them were just travel bloggers, or so it wasn't even people who were necessarily writing reviews about movies. But I think for the most part, they were Disney fans. So I don't know if that's kind of one of the reasons they're like, oh, let's choose these people because they like Disney anyway. So the chances that they aren't, and like, and when you're invited on a trip like that, is it hard not to feel like you owe them something in a way
yeah, I mean, that's why I'll never get invited to things like that, which is fine.
but they don't say like you don't go to the thing and they're like, you better write a positive review about this movie or whatever. But are you going to try to put a positive? I don't know. Early on, was that my mantra? Probably. But the more I've done it, then I'm like, no, like you don't owe them anything. If they're inviting you to provide your honest thoughts, then that's what people deserve. That's what your audience deserves.
Well, I mean, it takes guts though to do it because not that many people can do it.
I mean, I've definitely done it for the theme parks, and so I have been kicked off some lists and stuff. But I mean,
did you think you got kicked off?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. Did you watch Jenny Nicholson's Star Wars Hotel?
No.
You gotta watch it.
No. I did because I heard about it. I think I first saw it about like on TikTok, and then I kind of went down that rabbit hole.
I mean, you never think that a 4-hour video would be so compelling about the Star Wars Hotel, but it was so well done. She blew me away. Just how what a solid dissecting of not only this one particular product, but basically dissecting the entire brand, and not just Star Wars, but just Disney as a corporation. It was really good.
Yeah, and I think because now that I live in Orlando, I've lived in Orlando for about 4 years now. So I was like huge Disney fan. I think probably more so when I lived in Virginia. And then since moving here and I worked very briefly at one of the hotels here and kind of got that point of view. And then I was also part of this thing called Plan Disney. It used to be called the Disney Parks Moms Panel, and now it's the Plan Disney Panel, which is still active today. And so I was part of that, which is a group they have a search every year. And then it's a group of contracted workers who answer questions on Disney's website for guests. And so I've kind of gotten a peek behind the curtain everywhere. And
that's interesting.
It opens your eyes for sure. But the thing about Disney is, I don't know why they're so against constructive criticism. Like, if you're just going to be mean, I get that. Like, okay, like, see ya. But constructive criticism that helps make a movie or a product better, like, either take it or don't, but you don't have to be like mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they would be very smart to listen because they had a great year this year, unexpectedly so, as far as their movies, but I still think the brand itself it has a lot of problems right now. And I mean, I love Disneyland, and I haven't been for 2 years to Disneyland. But I didn't go to this D23 this year or last year. But I did go to the previous one, and I went twice to Disneyland that year. But that year I went to Universal Studios Hollywood for the first time, and I had a way better experience. And I was not expecting to say that. I never thought I would say that. But it was just almost universally. It was just across the board better than my experience at Disneyland. And that makes me very sad to say that, but it's just true. It's just true. And yeah,
I think Universal has definitely stepped it up for sure. Meanwhile, yes, I think in some aspects Disney's product has
You
gone,
get
I don't
nickel
know.
and dimed for everything. You get charged for everything. It's
Yeah.
not as clean. It's just not as fun as it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I still drink the Kool-Aid, but I will agree with that. I think the product is not as good as it used to
No.
be, and the prices keep going up. But that's the thing, they can and they won't change anything until people stop going and paying those
Yeah.
prices. And I mean, that's business.
Yeah. It's gonna well, and what's sad is that it's changing into an exclusive experience as opposed to a middle of the like more of a middle class experience that was
Yeah,
like accessible. I mean, it's going from an exclusive experience to I mean, it's going from an accessible experience to an exclusive experience, which is a bummer. It's a
yeah,
bummer, but
yeah,
it'll be interesting. I mean, because the thing too is with Disney is that they have these cycles where through the history of their company, where they they'll have a renaissance, and then things will get bad, and then eventually it'll come around. And I feel like we're in need of we've been in the slump for a
we're
while. We
we're
need
like, we
come
need the
on. When
Renaissance,
is
the
it
resurgence, please.
when's the new when's the new renaissance gonna happen? I'm hoping that with the change out of Jennifer Lee, with her leaving as chief creative officer, that whoever they put in place, I don't know if they've announced that yet, but anyway, that changeover from her, I hope that maybe that will be that they need to kind of maybe, who
Yeah, I
knows,
mean, I think
who knows.
they're always working, planning and stuff. And
Well, and they're a
so,
they're a very CEO driven company. A lot of companies, the CEO is kind of just a shirt, like a suit.
yeah,
It doesn't
yeah.
really matter that much, but with Disney, it really seems like it matters a lot,
Yeah.
you know. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I was an MBA grad, and so I always find sort of the study of companies to be interesting, you
No, it
know,
definitely is. Yeah.
kind of what the decisions they make. And it's been interesting covering Hallmark for Hallmarkies podcasts. I have just watch that brand, how it's evolved over the years. And this was just our 8th Christmas season that we did, and to see it change and evolve. And now they just started Hallmark Plus, and
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, in September. So what's going to happen. It's very interesting to me,
Yeah.
you know. But that's cool that you get to like kind of at least still sort of slip in your opinions every now and then, and or at least kind of see what's happening on a more ground level.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
cool.
nice. I mean, I literally live 10 minutes from the theme park, so I'm there quite a bit.
Which is your favorite of the 4 at Disney World?
I mean, I think it'll always just be Magic Kingdom because of
Mm,
Cinderella Castle and it's iconic. But
mm-hmm.
I used to not like Epcot as much, but Epcot has bumped up as my number 2. I think
Yeah.
with the addition of Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, I think that
Uh-huh.
helped. But
Yeah.
I also like the festivals that they have throughout the year.
Mm. I've only been one time when I was 12, but since I'm on the West Coast, I'm
Hmm.
Disneyland girl, but one of these days I'd like to go.
You need to go. A lot has changed, and then
Yeah.
you should hit Universal while you're here too, because Epic Universe
Yeah.
opens this year,
I
and
know.
that's
They'll
gonna
have
be
3
insane.
parks, right? Then
Yeah, but Epic is
that's
huge. Like,
yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, I was just so impressed because I I got the VIP day at Universal because I only had
mm,
one day that I was there.
yeah,
And in my opinion, for what you get, I think it's very reasonable. It's 350. Well, it depends on when you go. For me, it was $350, which is a lot of money. But for the experience, you get an individual tour on the studio part, uh, with just you and a small group.
hmm,
That's better than their basic tour. And then you get a pretty yummy lunch, and then you get walked on to every ride basically that you want to go on, to the
That's
very
awesome.
front, which I don't know. I thought that was, I mean, you'd pay way more than $350 for something like that at Disneyland.
Yeah. I think so. One of my favorite, it's not really a secret, but one of my best tips, like if you come to the East Coast, is that Universal has a few hotels that offer the express passes if you stay there.
Yeah,
So you just have to stay there one night and you get 2 days of express passes.
that's
And
nice.
that's pretty much just walking on. Like sometimes there's a little line, but nothing big. And that's totally worth it. I've used it at
Oh,
Thanksgiving, even as a local, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, just to be able to navigate the crowds that way.
that sounds good. Because I actually like, walking isn't a problem, but actually standing is harder for
Yeah.
me than like, and because it just hurts my feet so bad, and so standing in the lines is actually the hardest part
No, I
for me.
agree. I don't,
Yeah.
it hurts my back. I'm getting old. Like
Yeah.
my body can't take this theme park stuff anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, well, do you have a favorite ride? Your favorite ride?
At Disney.
Yeah, Disney.
So my favorite nostalgic ride is Peter Pan's Flight.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably my favorite other ride is Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic
Oh,
Rewind.
that's cool. Yeah, my favorite, I mean, I think my favorite ride just in general is the Haunted Mansion
Hmm.
at Disneyland, and I prefer traditional over the holiday one.
Really?
Yeah,
I
I
love
mean, I
I
like
love that
both, but
holiday layover. I
it's
love it.
fun. It's fun, but I don't know. I like I maybe it's just sort of nostalgia in me, but
Yeah.
I like the fact that Disneyland used to be unique. You know, that it
Yeah.
used to have its own IP and its own rides. And now everything has a movie attached to it. You know, so I guess that's why, even though I like it and I like Nightmare Before Christmas, I just like the traditional one
No,
best.
I get that. And I think probably for me it's more because it's because I'm in the park so often and I get the regular version so often that it's like a
Yeah.
special treat. But no, I get it. Like if I had to choose two, I probably would still choose
Yeah.
the original version.
And I mean, as far as new, I guess Rise of the Resistance is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It seems hard to even compare it to other rides. Like it's almost more like a play. It's like an immersive experience.
Oh yeah. When
It's
you
not
go
really
through
a
some of those
ride.
rooms, like it's
Yeah.
crazy. Do you call them AT-ATs or do you call them AT-ATs?
Oh, probably AT-ATs.
I call them AT-ATs. I don't even know
Yeah.
why, but
Yeah. I mean, I think that Galaxy's Edge is a big dud, but I think Rise Resistance is really fun.
no, I agree. I love the Millennium Falcon as far as what it looks like on the outside, but the ride itself is kind of a letdown.
Yeah, it's not great. And honestly, they would that land would be so much better if they just got rid of the whole canon element. Who cares if it's like tied into canon? Nobody. Just
Hmm.
have it be a Star Wars land and you can go and see Leia and Luke and
I know.
R2D2 and C3PO and whatever. Like it's it would
Yeah,
be way more popular. As it is, it's just kind of a cement,
it's there.
land with a few Star Wars things to it. It's not fun.
Yeah. I just it's a lot of
And
space for what they did.
that blue milk is absolutely
Oh
horrible.
my gosh, I hate that
It's
milk.
so gross.
That was one of the things I felt so bad. So when Galaxy's Edge opened in Disneyland, one of my friends got invited for PR and she took me as her plus one.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we had ordered like all the food and we drank this blue milk. And I was like, I'm sorry, but this is horrible. Like, I cannot say good
It's
things about this. The blue milk, the green milk, it was gross.
it's like, no, it's absolutely terrible. It's like drinking perfume.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
gross.
When it first came out, it was even worse, but I think they've changed the recipe a little bit.
Oh,
So I
have
can
they?
actually drink it now. before I could not even. We took one sip and
I
it
know
went in the
some people
trash.
put alcohol in theirs.
Maybe
Like
that
maybe that
adds
would
to
help.
the.
Make it, I don't know, but but I really do love I love Disneyland. I have a great fondness for it,
Yeah.
but I just the last time I went, I was so irritated because I ordered some Waltz chili.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding. It was this little. It was
Really?
maybe 3-4 spoonfuls. It was a tiny cup. Was $10.
Oh, no, usually like
There's
Disneyland's food is,
like a
I
shot
think,
glass
way
of
better than
chili,
Disney.
you're just like, what?
Yeah, you got to find the right food though, because I will say I like Disneyland food better than Disney World
Oh
food
yeah.
for
I've
sure.
heard that from so many people. Plus
Yeah.
they have the churro toffee in
Yes, I
Disneyland.
do like the cherry
Yeah.
toffee. The raspberry rose macaron
Yeah.
is probably my favorite snack. That's at Jolly Holiday.
The other like secretly great deal at Disneyland is the chimichangas.
Oh yeah,
They're only
those are good.
$5
Yeah,
and they're big.
they're big.
It's like it's crazy. But they
Are they
only have
still
them
only
for
$5? I feel like they're
maybe they've gone
everything's
up, but at the time they were $5. And then um they probably have gone up because it's Disney. But yeah, it was like they were only available for like 2 hours and you had to get it right in front of a it was in front of a Small World. It was right over there.
yeah,
Anyway, it was like this great deal for like a pretty
a
good.
limited time.
Yeah, but and the Dole Whip used to be a pretty good deal, but
Yeah,
I'm sure
I do
that's
love
not.
a Dole Whip.
Yeah, it's tasty.
And they've added a bunch of different flavors now, so it's not just pineapple.
Yeah, yeah, and now you can get them all over the place. Like my
Yeah,
movie theater has Dole
yeah.
Whips,
And
so
like a frozen froyo places have them too.
yeah. So it's not quite as special as it used to
Yeah.
be. But
It's the
anyway, enough
atmosphere.
about Disney World. It's an interesting, like I said, I find watching companies and kind of how they evolve and change. I find that very interesting. And I worked in
Yeah.
marketing for 10 years. So I think and I'm marketing my own product, as well. And so I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast. My name is BJ.
And my name is Me Too, and we promise this promo is worth it, so please don't skip ahead.
We're two judgy friends who put our judgmental skills to work for you. We review the pilot episodes of new and popular shows and shows that our listeners request to answer your question, should I watch this?
Look, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and yes, we should be reading and trying new projects and enriching ourselves, but does anything beat binging a great show?
Let us take the guesswork out of deciding what your next show will be. Tune in to The Pilot Podcast at thepilotpodcast.com.
Well, let's talk about movies. Do you have like movies that really shaped your like love of film? They are like foundation films for you.
So I don't, it's hard because like I kind of put things into different compartments, right? So the thing that got me to actually love movies is Marvel. And I had not seen any of the like I came into the game way late. So probably the first Marvel movie I saw was Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Oh, it's a
And
good
that
one
was
to come
that
in
was
on.
not even like one of my favorite. Like it's probably towards the bottom of my list now. And then I started to watch all of them. And so that really, I don't know that it I loved movies before then, right? As a kid, because I would see the Disney movies and stuff. But that's what really I think got me into movies that I didn't know that I would like because I wasn't into comic books. I wasn't into really even action films. I was more of a rom-com, even like
Yeah.
Disney animated girl. And so
Did you have a favorite growing up that was
of my animated film?
yeah, or of just movies in general? Did you have one that was your favorite?
I mean, I love Snow White and I love Toy Story.
Good choices. Yeah. Yeah. The Toy Story is one of my favorites as well. Yeah, I mean, I love Snow White too, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Pixar in general, though, is just it gets
Yeah, they don't have that many misses.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
really
They have
don't.
some, but for the most part, they usually come through.
Yeah. 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 Cool. So you write kid-friendly reviews
Yeah, so
on your site.
yeah, so for parent guides or things for parents so that they know what to expect when they're watching a film.
Yeah. So is that more like content or also just like tone and feel or message? Do you kind of cover it all?
Yeah, it's a little bit. So I will, there's definitely the content aspect of it as far as, and sometimes I'll dig a little deeper as far as counting even specifically how many cuss words there are or, sexual content, mature content. So that's definitely in it. And then I'll add as far as tone or whether it's dark or things like that. But for the most part, I'm not necessarily trying to sway parents either way. Um, so the content portion is for them so that they can decide what's appropriate for their kids. And then I'll give my opinion about what I thought about the movie in general. So but my opinion is not meant to sway their opinion as far as, hey, am I going to let my kid watch this or not?
Mm-hmm. What do you think is like the ideal family film, the one you think of?
That's a good question. So I so my ideal so from this year or from 2024, my ideal family film was Inside Out 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it because it wasn't it wasn't necessarily soft. Like it didn't have kid gloves on it, I didn't feel, because it was still able to tackle important topics, messages that can lean more mature, but still present it in a way that's appropriate for kids and families to watch
Yeah.
together and have a discussion about it afterwards.
Yeah. It was a lot better than I expected it to be. I was nervous
Yeah,
because
same.
the ads, the trailers, I didn't think were very good, and the whole idea of them talking about anxiety made me anxious.
Yeah.
Because it's not an emotion; it's an actual clinical diagnosable. Like it's a it's just different than like sadness and anxiety.
Yeah.
And so I thought, how are they going to deal with it? And there were still things that a lot of my a lot of my worries were there. But they just it had enough heart, and they did a good enough job that it didn't matter to me, and I was okay. There were problems with it. It wasn't perfect, but
Right.
it worked. It worked.
I think for me, it was
And it gave that conversation. You could have a really good conversation with particularly like your middle school age kids, I think,
yeah.
talking about friends and friendships and the anxiety around that and trying to fit in. And that I think that's where they were really smart in how they did it.
Yeah. For me, I think it resonated because in my life, I don't know that I have had a lot of anxiety, like maybe pockets of it, but I think that film also helped me recognize it in myself, but also to be more empathetic and how to recognize it in my children,
Yeah.
friends, things like that. Especially that scene where Riley is having her anxiety attack when she's playing the game, and I thought they just did a really great job of being able to put that on screen, like in an animated film.
So how did you feel about Wicked? Is that something you would recommend to families?
I mean, I loved it. I and yes, I would recommend it to families. I mean, my kids are older now. My youngest is 12. But I would definitely let younger kids watch it.
Yeah.
There are definitely themes that are darker and some of the scenes, especially with like towards the end, are
Yeah. The only
again.
thing that I would be a little bit concerned with as far as little kids is just they might get a little antsy, might be a little
Oh
boring
yeah,
to little kids.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure I even said that in my review. Like I'll usually say, "Hey, the film is this long," or I don't know that there's enough for them to relate to. Like if they love musicals, then sure, bring them. But this
Mm-hmm.
might be something you wait till it comes out on at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, it's interesting because also, I mean, because I loved The Wild Robot. That was my favorite movie, just period of the year, let alone family film. But it's interesting because I think that it didn't have very, it was I admired them because they didn't kidify it hardly at all. I mean, there is
Yeah.
just very little comic relief. It's pretty serious.
Yeah.
And and I admire that about it, but I think if I was a parent, I would be like, oh, are my kids ready for this?
Right. It's especially when you're dealing with
Serious.
yes, because it's like you want to have that conversation, but also it's like some of the movies can be depressing, and I'm like, do I want my kids to like come
Yeah.
out of this like, oh, like with this kind of heaviness instead of,
Yeah.
like an upbeat rather,
It
type
depends
of
on the
thing.
kid too, because like my little brother, I have a brother that's 16 years younger than me. He was so affected by stuff like that. Like, remember we watched the Little Princess, Alfonso Cuarón, Little Princess, and that is a sad movie, but like he was like devastated. He couldn't like deal with it, and like he was just so upset and and he had a harder time like bouncing back from like a sad movie, like that. I mean, most of the Disney movies had a little Lion King, stuff like that. Like they're
Yeah.
and so uh he would be someone if I had a kid like my brother, I'd be pretty careful.
Well, and I think that's the purpose of these kind of, reviews of when you're doing like a parent review is like it's not no movie is a one size fit all.
Yeah.
And so you have to know your child. So, that's why I'm saying, okay, here's the content. You decide whether that's something your child can handle or not. Because I mean, some of my friends, their kids are when they're like 6 are watching these horror films and stuff. And I'm like, I don't even like I can't handle that. So, but some
Yeah.
people can. And so
Yeah.
it just depends.
It's true. I part-time work as a part-time para educator at a school, and there's a couple kids who are super into like horror and scary, and I'm just amazed that one kid, he's probably 4th grade, so whatever age that is. He's seen everything. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
He's seen Texas Chainsaw Murderer. He's seen, and it was funny. There was another kid, and he did not believe me when I told him I'd seen Shin Godzilla. He's like, no, you haven't. I'm like, I'm a film critic, of course I've seen it. And he's like, no, you're thinking of something else. And I'm like, no, I've seen it.
Well,
It
that's
was
I mean,
funny.
how many kids I see at like Halloween Horror Nights?
Yeah.
Like that stuff is, I'm like, oh no.
I was a pretty big wimp, and I've gotten braver over the years, especially once I became like once I was on Rotten Tomatoes, I was like, okay, I need to take this more seriously and need to expand my palette and be open to
Yeah.
different genres and things. So I really tried, and I've seen most of the big. I haven't seen Texas Chainsaw, but I have seen Nightmare on Elm Street. I've seen Halloween. I've seen a lot of those famous ones, The Thing, things like that. And most of them I've actually enjoyed. I just saw Wolfman last night. Enjoyed that. But I but when I was a kid, I was definitely very, very nervous. Like even like Pinocchio was too much for me a lot of times. It was pretty scary.
I mean, some of those scenes in Pinocchio are crazy. So like I can see that.
Yeah, when they're getting turned into the donkeys.
Yes. That whole carnival like
Yeah.
atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's traumatic.
No, it still kind of traumatizes me when it's on that ride. It's still on the ride.
Yeah. And when
at Disneyland.
Pinocchio is face down in the water, like the drama. Oh my God. But yeah, and so and the big one for me growing up was a Return to Oz. That like traumatized me. Have you ever seen it?
No, but I'm trying to think if any movie has like traumatized me like when I was younger, but I can't think
There's
of
a
one.
scene where she goes to meet the evil queen, and the queen has a hallway of heads, and the heads are all like looking and talking to her.
Oh,
It's terrifying.
no, thank you. No,
Terrifying.
thank you.
I mean, the Wizard of Oz just in general
Yeah.
is terrifying. I mean, that's what makes me laugh about Wicked. I'm like, this is quite the fan fiction. I mean, I love it. It was
Yeah.
great. but
No, I loved it.
that you're supposed to buy that this woman who told Dorothy, "I'll get you my pretty and your little dog too." That's like the nice lady, right? I don't think so. She literally was gonna kill her little doggy.
Maybe just was gonna take him for a walk or something.
I'll get you my pretty and your little dog too. So yeah, it's it's gonna be interesting. I mean, I really loved Wicked, but I'm still not convinced they need to make it into 2 parts. They still have to convince me of the second part because Act 2 in Wicked is it well, Wicked on the stage, Act 1 is way stronger than Act 2 as far as songs.
Yeah.
Like the action is good in Act 2, but there's really only 3 memorable songs, and almost all the rest is reprises or like,
right.
Do we really need that? So the fact that they are going to make a whole movie off, I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced, but we'll see. It was way better than I was expecting, and they pulled it off. So we'll see how they do.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I was especially skeptical going into it.
Yeah.
And then after I sat through it, I was like, okay, but I wasn't done. So like I was okay with it being in 2 parts. But I'm curious though, like you said, I think the first act is stronger than the second. So we'll see.
I just think they could have easily cut 30 minutes from that first movie and then added it's just for good. Yeah.
Maybe make it like 3 hours or something.
Yeah. As long as you're mine and what's the other one? Anyway, there's 3 memorable songs that I can't remember.
That's not so memorable.
but it'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off. But I have a feeling it's gonna, because it seems like most people prefer Infinity War over Endgame, even though I don't know if I'm in that camp, but it seems like that's pretty popular.
I am in that camp.
Yeah, it's pretty common. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same with Wicked, that most people for part 1.
Yeah.
Over part 2, but we'll see what they're going to do, because I'm sure that they're going to tie everything more into the Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy's going to be in there and whatever. So
yeah, I want to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But what were there any other movies this year that were favorites of yours?
So I really liked Sing Sing, which I know was not a favorite of yours.
I think because I'm a theater person, I was expecting to love it, and it was all right, but for me, I wanted like this. It didn't have that like that emotional. It was, I don't know. It just didn't do it for me, but I get it. I get it why most people loved it like you did.
Yeah, it was kind of slow for me. Like for the most part, I like a little bit more like, I don't know.
It's like I wanted to be emotionally manipulated more. I wanted it to really, but they were going for a more subtle approach, which, I can understand, I guess, but.
And sometimes I like that I don't like to be emotionally manipulated. And so I liked the subtlety. And then also my background is in social work. And so I used to be a CPS worker and worked on some task forces and stuff. And but also I think, did you serve a mission for the LDS Church? Okay, so did I. And I served in Ecuador.
Oh, cool.
And so one of the places that I went to a jail to kind of talk to people. And they had a special section of the jail where I'm assuming it was people who had nonviolent crimes, but they were allowed to live together. It was like kind of an outside. There were several beds outside of the main part of jail. And they kind of had this little community going of about maybe 10
in
inmates.
Ecuador?
Yeah, in Ecuador.
Okay.
And it was about like 10 inmates. And so like me and my companion would go and visit them. And like, I think just being able to talk to them.
That makes sense.
And so that kind of drew me in a little bit more to these, because it's so hard, because it's like you're empathizing with these people who have done something to go into jail. And I don't necessarily know everybody's story, right? So whether it's something that's more minor or whatever, and
Right.
it's such a, I don't know.
Well, I mean, and anybody's worthy of compassion and,
Yeah.
you know, or kindness. That's cool. Did you see Heretic?
No.
Oh man,
I could not bring myself, not just
I
because
would
like I have
love to
served
hear
a
what you
mission.
think.
I know, and I keep thinking I'm going to, but I have a daughter who is currently serving a mission, and that is
Oh,
why I haven't been able to watch it.
okay.
Like if it wasn't for that, I would be all in,
Yeah.
because I'm very curious about everything. But I just can't do it yet until she comes
Mhm.
home, and then I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so interesting to hear that because I when I was writing my review and when I did a whole episode of Film Critics panel on it. I was wondering, I was like, am I the only return sister missionary film critic on Rotten Tomatoes? But now I know I'm not.
Yeah.
I know I'm not. But it was very interesting to watch. And normally I don't like horror that's along sort of the more tortury kind of, you know, that sort of like Saw and things like I'm not
Mhm.
into that. But it really, especially like the first hour is very interesting sort of back and forth between what I was worried is they were going to make the sister missionaries simpletons, fools, stupid, but they
Mhm.
really didn't. They were right up back and forth with him, and I thought were smart and thoughtful and not just like naive like I was expecting. So I liked it. I thought it was good. It definitely kind of loses its way the last act of it, but it was strong enough for long enough that I
Yeah.
appreciated it.
I do want to, I even asked my friends like who are not members of the church, but who are close to me, like,
Yeah.
okay, should I watch this? They're like, no, don't watch it. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all
Yeah,
right.
I can see, especially if you had a daughter out.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
When she gets home, I'll watch it, but right now I can't. But I did look up spoilers and stuff to know what happened, just, and so because I was like, okay, I think maybe I
Yeah.
could watch it.
Do you get a lot of flack within the church for like seeing our rated R movies and things like that?
No,
Good. That's
because I
good.
have
We've
because I
been
have
proving.
good friends.
Yeah.
I stay away from the ones who will judge me. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Because there was definitely a time where I haven't felt that. I mean, I'm still active, but like not as ingrained in the culture as I used to be.
mhm.
I still, you know, tend, but but there was definitely a time where people would there's a
Oh
time where
yeah.
people would get up, bear their testimonies, and their whole thing would be about how somebody had tried to tempt them to see a rated R movie. You know?
And I think the thing is
Oh,
too,
funny.
like I growing up, there was probably, I can maybe name a handful that I saw, kind of because that's
Yeah.
what is ingrained. But I think, and that's one of the reasons
Well,
though,
especially during the 90s, like it was definitely a
yes.
thing. Like you
Yeah.
shouldn't, yeah.
And then I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of started doing these parent reviews, because there was a time when I would look for that information even when I was like a teenager, and I remember one site, I think it was called screenit.com, where
Yeah.
I would find that information, and then after that for some reason like I could never find things, and so I was like, okay, well, just so that I know, because there are certain things, right? There are films I still don't like watching films that have like a lot of like gratuitous sex and nudity. Like I just, it's not that it makes me uncomfortable. It's just, I don't like it. And so for the most part, I'll stay away from that. Or if I know that that's what a movie is about or things like that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, no, nobody says
Yeah,
anything to me.
and you know what's interesting is that since I became a critic and I just watch most everything now, a lot of that stuff has just kind of lost its power over me. I don't know, like stuff that it's not that maybe I have become kind of desensitized, but also it's just like it's just a body. It's not like I don't know, it's just not as like it doesn't have that lasting. It's like since I just sort of became open to it, it's like doesn't stick with me the way it doesn't have that same kind of just kind of an experience and I move on. I don't know. It's interesting how, I don't know, just I've changed a lot in the last few years in that regard.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I don't know that, like, I can't say that I'm desensitized to it. So, and
well,
like,
I mean, there's still stuff, but it's just been interesting to see in myself just the last few years. Like I said, I still don't really like watching torture or, that kind of a thing. Violence for me is a lot more like triggering than like language. I could really care less. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And but I understand that that's important to some people and they get that. But I don't know. It's just been an interesting process for me.
Yeah. And I think same kind of thing. Like, and I think some people care more about whether there's nudity in a film or whether there's violence in a film or whether there's swearing in a film. Like different things matter more to different people. And
like, I'm not going to watch Terrifier 3. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, there are lines still. But...
Yeah. No, for sure. No, but
because we cover all the Christmas movies. And so I was like, well, that is, at Hallmark's podcast, like, that is one Christmas movie I will not be seeing in 2024. Terrifier 3. But with the scary stuff, for me, I realized that if it's something that's supernatural, then it's really not that scary for me. Because it doesn't feel, but if it's like murdery about like a murderer and I feel more close to home, like this could actually happen to me. Like, that to me is a lot scarier than
what about like
Freddy
psychological
Krueger and dreams and
like slasher films versus psychological films or something.
When it's completely ridiculous, then it's not as scary to me.
Yeah, because you're like, no.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
But I saw that you were a big fan of The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which I also loved. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, because I thought it was great because, watching a lot of religious films or films about Christianity or about that topic, sometimes I feel like they do spoon feed you this message or that it's a little bit corny, cheesy, that kind of thing. But I feel like this one was not. And so anybody can enjoy it, whether you believe in Christ or not.
Yeah, I think anybody, if you can enjoy like Charlie Brown Christmas, then you can enjoy The Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. Well, do you have like a big unpopular opinion that you got a lot of pushback on?
About like a certain film or just in
like
general?
On Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh my gosh.
You went rotten for that.
It's a bit traumatic for me.
Yeah, I get it. I do.
Actually I had an incident with the Batman.
That doesn't surprise me at all. For me, it was Shazam.
Okay.
The DC fans are I mean, Marvel fans too, but they can be brutal.
And I will say, like, some of the points that were made during all of the commentary and things like that, I was like, okay, you have valid points and things like that. But sometimes when I write back then too, when I would write like the little snippet or get the snippet from, on Rotten Tomatoes to put just on the site, sometimes I would write things to like entertain myself, just to make myself laugh, because for the most part, people were finding me through Google and not through Rotten Tomatoes, which was probably that was my bad, right? And so I had
I just didn't. I had no comments because I also went rotten on the Batman. So we're simpatico on that one.
I went rotten, and then and it was before the film had actually come out, and all of a sudden, like, it was this influx of like death threat after death threat after death threat, and I'm like, are we for real right now? Like, we're for real that you're gonna like tell me you're gonna slit my kids' throats over a film that you haven't even seen yet? And I think people thought, though, that I had put it rotten because it was not kid friendly, is what I said. So I think that's why they thought that I had put it rotten. I was like, no, that's not my issue with it. But even though I don't think it's kid friendly, and a lot of that too is I do have a big problem. Again, not why I made this rotten, but a lot of what people were talking to me about in the comments were like, duh, of course it's not kid friendly. Like, it's Batman, and his parents were killed. Da, da, da. I'm like, yes, I get that
his parents are killed. That is the cool.
Yeah, I get that he's not going to be. Well, what did I even say? I said something about he's like super broody or something like that, which was because he was, and it made me laugh, and I'm like, okay, I should not have said that, but I do have a big problem when, okay, that Batman's not typically a kid-friendly character as far as if that's how you want to portray him, right? But there's obviously Batman cartoons where kids are going to love Batman. But my problem is if you make a movie that is supposed to be darker, that's
crazy because you didn't even go rotten on it.
Well, I did, but then I actually changed it.
Oh, you changed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in my review, you can see like why I put like why I ended up changing the score, because a lot of what had to do with it, and I used to put numbers. I used to rate a movie like,
Same.
3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, whatever, but I don't anymore.
Same. I changed too.
Yeah, because of that, but also because I understood the point of like, you're going to rate this movie fresh and not this one. And I'm like, okay, from that line of thinking, I understand what you're saying, because I'm sure in 2020, when I was stuck in my house and there was nothing to do, and like, I'm just watching whatever is coming on my streaming network, I'm like, did this make me smile at all? Okay, fresh. Like, I was in this headspace of like, I probably shouldn't have. And so there's probably some trash movies that I was like, yeah, sure, this is fresh. And then once I got out of that headspace, and I was like, okay.
I just felt like the movie was really one note. It was just like brooding Bruce, and I mean very, very little Bruce, but
don't call him broody. They'll come after you.
Yeah, I said I wish they had taken the time to develop Bruce as a real person with feelings and emotions. Even in a dark and brooding film noir, there still should be moments where the characters breathe and connect.
Yeah, and that was kind of my.
So that's why I had no comments.
Well, he's supposed to be, this detective-y. I don't know. I was like, everybody else did the work for him. Batman didn't do anything.
Yeah, you just kind of like walking around. Like, yeah, I agree that I didn't hate it. I was a 5 out of 10.
Right. And that's the thing. I did not hate it. But yeah, they came after me.
I said the way they have written Bruce in the story doesn't give Pattinson much to work with. The character is stagnant and does more meaningful staring than actual growth. It's almost episodic in feel, despite it being nearly 3 hours. He starts out as Batman and he works on solving the case of the Riddler, and that's it. And that's a main issue of the film, the script. The story is extremely one note and doesn't develop characters we care about or become emotionally invested in. They put the pieces together for the case, but that's fairly predictable and bland. If this was just a generic detective movie without the iconic IP, I don't think there would be much interest in the story or the characters.
Yeah.
So I'm with you.
But eventually there was other people who would come to my defense, like, because all of this was occurring before people had seen the film. Like,
it's just an opinion.
Angry. Exactly. And it's like, what do you think that like my rotten vote is going to make sure that no other Batman movie will ever be made? Like, if
only we had that power.
Oh yeah, I was
If
just
critics
shocked.
had the power, then there would only be one Transformers movie. That's it.
Oh, bless.
If only.
If only.
But yeah, I mean, and it still did very well. Who cares if not? It's got
Well,
85% and made a lot of
exactly.
money. Who cares if a couple critics didn't like it? Who cares?
Oh, there was
Why
whole
do they care?
TikToks. There was TikToks made about me. Like it had, no, it had
I'm
gotten
sure.
so bad that like people, when we went home to like Virginia, and like for spring break or something or summer, one of her friends was like, "Oh my gosh, I saw your mom on TikTok." Like some guy was like telling her, and then even like here in Florida, my daughter was working, and her coworker was like, "Oh my gosh,
Oh
my
my
boyfriend wants to
gosh.
go see the Batman, but he's so mad at this one critic who like said," and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's my mom," and like I'm like, "This is
That's funny.
crazy. This is
Yeah.
crazy."
Yeah, it's wild. Like when I got the true pile on with the mass shooting threat and I had to like inform the FBI for Shazam, that was insane. And I thought that I was
Mass
like pretty
shooting?
strong. Yeah. Yeah, we had to notify the FBI, we had to notify Warner Brothers. It was nuts. And I thought that I was pretty strong. That nothing could really like get me, but it's a lot harder when you're actually in the thick of it.
Well, because you don't really, for the most part, is anybody going to do anything to you? No, because they're all these keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, there's some crazies out there, so they could. And so there's always that if chance, and it just, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, is this worth it? Like,
Yeah.
is this worth it?
It's just unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we like to end our episodes with some fun get to know you questions.
Okay.
So, first question was the best ice cream flavor.
Mint chocolate chip.
What is your favorite color?
Orange.
What music are you into?
Boy bands.
Oh, nice. Good. Okay. What is your go-to date night food?
Oh, sushi.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Because it's so clean. You're not going to get that's the key to me. I don't want to spill on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good choice. Okay. What is your go-to date night activity if you're going out doing something?
Well, because we live by the theme parks, we usually go to Disney or to the movies.
Yeah. Okay. Which you like better, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Which you like better, beaches or mountains?
Beaches.
Me too. What's your favorite holiday to celebrate?
Halloween.
And what is your favorite romantic movie?
Oh, that's a tough one.
This is Hallmarky's podcast questions. That's why they're kind of romance focused.
What is my favorite? I don't know. Maybe Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, that's a good one. Good one. Very good. You did it. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Yay,
I will definitely
thanks
have you
for having
back.
me.
It was so fun to get to meet you and to find out your, I had no idea that you're LDS. So that's fun. That's good to know.
Yep.
Well, if people
I'll come back to discuss Heretic.
Yes, when you watch
later
it,
this year. My daughter should be home in May, the end of May. So
good. Well, if people want to follow you and read your reviews and everything else, how do they do that?
So my site is lolalambchops.com, and then pretty much I'm everywhere on social media with @Lolalambchops.
Great. We'll have all that information in the description, so check it out. And thanks again. I'd like to thank Tania for coming on the podcast. She was super cool. I really enjoyed talking with her. Let me know what you think about all different things that we talked about in the comments or on Twitter. And you can follow me all over at Rachel's Reviews and check out the playlist for all of my female film critic panel episodes. I've just loved doing this series so much. And so I would love for you to check out those interviews over the years. And also you can check out the merch store. You can get female film critic panel shirts. So fun. And we have the Patreon group, which is the best way you can support everything we do. And you get really cool perks. And thanks again to Tania. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.